let's dive right in. And the first line we're going to be taking a look at in our series is facing the Grünfeld. And Ulf's a knight f3 guy. One knight f3 and two c4. This also works with an English move order. I'm typically a 1c4 player myself. After g6, this is already a critical moment. Ulf has played the solid g3 systems, but generally, knight c3 was his go-to move. And I love this because it puts the question to a Grünfeld player immediately. They can't wait. If bishop g7, Ulf would go e4, taking away the option to play d5 and try to get a Grünfeld. So a Grünfeld player needs to play d5 now. And after cd, knight d, there are multiple variations. I'm a big fan of queen a4 check, and that's been played by players like Nakamura. But Ulf, he had a very particular system that he was famous for here, e4. And after knight takes c3, it looks like a transposition into a classical mainline Grünfeld. Say, for instance, if you take with a b-pawn, bishop g7, d4, c5, you can definitely play in this way. And this is a super topical line. But Ulf wasn't huge on opening theory. He wants his specialized positions. So after knight takes c3, would you like to trade queens? Happy to go to an equal position with you. Sure, trade queens. And his opponent plays the best move here, f6, which already, that's kind of an awkward move that you have to know to keep the knight out in many lines. Bishop e3, already eyeing to take away a critical square. Black plays e5. And now, knight d2. And this follows the same path as game 2 of our in-game with Ulf series on Patreon. Solid, flexible. Bishop e6. And we question good bishop, bad bishop. This is the good bishop because it agrees with the pawn structure in the center and can attack our pawn. This is our bad bishop because it is on the same color as the locked pawn in the center. So it's easy to understand. Ulf offering good trade, bad trade for the opponent. King f7. We're in no hurry here. King c2. The trade is going to be imminent. Rook a d1. Action's going to happen on the only open file. a5. Our squares, we're not worried about you. Knight c5. And after this move, Ulf sees the opportunity to force a permanent imbalance in the position. And I love the choice that he makes here. Takes, and f3. Would you like to help with my development by capturing? c6, no. All right, fine. Now we've got a knight versus bishop ending. And the engine has that this is a negligible edge for white. But you'll notice Ulf in this game is played against a roughly 2,400 FIDE player, and he makes it look easy, just playing forever. And though the position is equal, it just shows you how hard it is to hold certain positions that are equal, and you can play forever and keep pressuring the opponent. So, use that Ulf Anderson philosophy of, if you do not feel that you can lose, play on forever. Have that mentality. Keep going. And here, we don't have any weaknesses with white. So let's see the rest of this game and how white makes the most of knight versus bishop. First, bother the bishop and lead it back to an inferior square. Now the only open file, we demand full coverage. Sure. And if he takes, we're happy to trade rooks off and go pure knight versus bishop. But black keeps the last rook, which is a good strategy. Ulf begins to transfer the knight to more flexible square. Notice how the bishop is just trying to cover the knight. And in the long term, white could look to play b4 at the right moment. But in the meantime, rook e1. If you try to play f5, you may run into some potential issues there. So black needs to wait. Well, if you're not going to play f5, I'm going to come back over here and I'm looking at that b4 idea. So if you take, potentially I can make an outside pass pawn in the long term. Not quite sure what black's plan or idea is here, so he sits and waits. And this is the kind of innocuous position that you're looking for. Just a little bit of something for your opponent to worry about. But I got to say that black plays pretty accurately here. King b3. And objectively, white shouldn't be getting much. But he negotiates the knight to the optimal square. Takes. Rook c1. Gotta protect the b pawn. Knight b2, working the knight around again. And all black can do is waste time, because the bishop is not the superior piece in this ending, though it should hold. But in a practical game, you can just improve. And notice how he's getting most of the pawns on the opposite color of the bishop. And finally, after some shuffling, we've just improved the position enough, waiting to see if black's going to do anything. And finally, can't take it anymore. Check. Rook takes. And this should be zeros. But again, Ulf plays on. G4, looking to potentially create another passer. Rook c7, always deal with the most dangerous one first. You can go after pawns too, but you gotta worry. G5, disruption. King can't come in. Takes, takes. Check, forcing the king on the back rank, cutting him off. King d6. Can't have that one, that's important. King e6. And this position is drawn. It's just quite difficult. Can't have that one. Pawn falls. And we'll stop at the key moment here. Rook f6. It looks as if white has built up a substantial edge, but this is the key moment. Black was fine until this next move, and this next move was a blunder that lost the game. Black to play and draw. What do you think? Well, in the main game, Rook h3 was played and lost a few moves later. Black should play Rook g1 with the idea of getting behind this f-pawn. And Rook a2, where once the e-pawn is moved enough, there's nowhere to hide, and this should make a draw. Black played Rook h3, and Ulf makes very quick work of his opponent with Rook f4 here, and the game is done, as the king will usher the e-pawn forward. So as you can see, it is difficult to hold equal positions when one side has the favorable advantage. And I really love the way Silman, in his complete endgame course in the Master chapter, focuses on the concept of cat and mouse. And in this game, it's a great example of knight versus bishop, and the knight is clearly on the cat side, bullying the bishop, if you will. Very difficult to hold in a practical game. And you can keep slowly improving the position, and that's the style you want to focus on with this repertoire as we head on to game 2.